with that, are we ready to go?
Oh, yeah, we are ready to go.
First of all, help me by the way, I assume Enkk is not, should I call you Enkk or should I call you some other name?
No, Enkk, it's okay. It's not my real name. Like, I'm Enrico. But I chose Enkk as a nickname since it's shorter and it seems American, which makes it cooler, right? I think.
No, I'm going to use Enrico. As long as I didn't know if people knew your real name.
Okay.
Right. And so if you normally, go by Enrico, then I'll go with Enrico.
It depends on the place, but on the internet I'm both Enrico and Enkk, so you can pick. Okay, we made it. It was, I think it's a good example to show other streamers that even the CEO can have connection issues, right? So that makes it really human. And let me say, it's a pleasure to be able to talk to you. I'm of course honored, and I've prepared some questions. I'm afraid some of the topics are gonna be the same questions that are always asked to you, but so sorry if it's gonna be partially boring, but I've added some stuff that maybe it's gonna lift it up.
The other thing is, while I may be used to answering them, I suspect few of your audience has heard me answer them. So that's one reason why I do this, is because I think it's very beneficial. The best way to reach the Twitch community is by going on Twitch streams.
Yeah, that's indeed true. So, I already presented you, but let me say it again. You have a PhD in artificial intelligence, and you have an astonishing curricula, right? You've worked at NASA for 7 years, at Google for almost 10, and also in Nextdoor for 4 years. And now you're the CEO of Twitch since March 2023. And to top it off, you're also a musician and a streamer. Like, you actually made all of the journey and took the partnership and all of that. So you're many things.
Yep.
And I must say, I feel like we have some commonalities shared, since I also have a PhD in artificial intelligence. I'm lacking the 30 years experience in the technological business, but maybe I have time to make my
Well, you're a bit younger. My money says you're 30 years younger than me, so there you go.
Yeah, maybe I can recover. I doubt it, but I also enjoy music. At least that's what the background says. So, in fact, I prepared a little surprise for you on the music side. But let's not
looking forward to it.
Okay, so some of the questions are gonna be a bit spicy, but I think you are accustomed to that, so I'm not afraid, right?
Spicy makes it fun.
Perfect, just like in the food. So the first question is actually a warm-up. What does it mean to be the CEO of Twitch? What do you do on a daily basis? What types of decisions you make? And do you have to be careful not to step on somebody's toes? Is there somebody that you cannot, like, you have to be careful, or as a CEO you can do whatever you want?
Well, let's start with the first part and then remind me of the second question in case I forget it. So what do I do on a daily basis? So I'll describe what is my job as CEO, right? My job as CEO is to be responsible for overall strategy of where we're going. And then to build an organization that can then execute on that strategy. Twitch is a large size platform, so our organization is large, and it's my job to make sure we get the right people in, and then we have the right processes so that we can help make the right decisions. Now, I happen to be a fairly detailed person. I come from a product background and engineering background, so I'll get involved in a lot of decisions at a detailed level because I enjoy that, and I think I have a lot of experience, so I can help influence the decisions and get us to the right decision. But that isn't necessarily my job. My job is to set direction, get the right people in, build the right structure so that we can then keep building the platform. And as a phrase I've often said is, I don't make all the decisions at Twitch, but at some level I'm responsible for all of the decisions at Twitch.
Sure.
And this is one of the tricky things, because the only way an organization can work effectively is if I'm not involved in all of the decisions and I don't know everything that's going on, which of course is strange for a streamer. They'll bring up a particular issue like, why is this cap like this? And they'll go through all these details and I'm like, I have no idea. Okay. Good question. Like, ping me, ask me, because I don't know why we have that cap set. And then of course, a big part of my job is also spending time with streamers. Twitch is here because of streamers, and it's a part of my job I enjoy, but it's also a part that's important because I think the streamer community cares deeply about what we're doing. And so me spending time with them, me traveling, me going on streams, and then me streaming myself has been very beneficial.
Okay.
So I think that's the first part of your question. Why don't you see if you have any follow-ups for the first part before I get to the second part?
Yeah, no, I mean, if I were you, of course, I'd like to, maybe I'd feel to wanna micromanage some parts of the process, but as you said, that's your job is actually quite the opposite, to have the eagle eye view and all of that. Do you have some of the parts of the product that you care especially, or that you take care especially?
Yeah, I'm a pretty detailed person, so there are a lot of things I go into the details on. I mean, our policies. So I was involved on the simulcasting policy, even to the extent that it was 2 nights before we were announcing it, and I realized some of the wording was a little wrong, and I was sending messages saying we have to change this to this and this to that.
Okay.
I've actually worked with the Stream Together team a fair amount. Part of it is because I'm a user, and so for all the good it does, I also see all the problems with it and all the things I want it to do in my mind, where I'm like, oh, this is where I want it to be. So I'm involved in that, involved with a lot of our, spend a lot of time, we're doing some work on an immersive feed and spend a lot of time with the team on that in terms of I think it's probably fair to say what I do is I spend time when we're kind of formulating ideas, right? And making sure we're aligned with where we're going.
Sure.
And then my job is to kind of step back and let them, a good example was our recent announcement about the Plus program. I was very involved in, establishing the rough framework of that. And then there were teams that worked through all sorts of detail, and I wasn't involved in that.
Okay, so maybe the actual number crunching and all of that is perfection by the team, but you like to take care and be informed of everything. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And in your decision making, so this is the second part. In your decision making, do you feel like you have some toes that you cannot step on? So you have to be careful that to not angry anyone, maybe on top of you. I don't know. Is there somebody on top of you?
Yeah, there is some. I report to someone who then reports to Andy Jassy. I don't really have to worry about that. I think when Twitch is fairly independent in Amazon, so really at no point do I worry about that. If you had to say, do you have to worry about, how people react? It'd be more the streamer community. Sure. But my general philosophy there is, I think in the past we have often worried about how they would receive news. Mm-hmm. And in the end, it's my job to make sure we're making the right decisions for Twitch long term, to make sure we can continue to thrive, continue to sustain, continue to offer the platform. And not every decision will be liked by every streamer. In fact, it's almost any decision will be disliked by some streamer.
Sure.
In whatever way you go.
Any change is going to make somebody upset. That's for sure.
Somebody upset. And if you worry about in social media, whoever is upset is going to get amplified in social media.
Sure.
That's the one thing I know. Okay.
Very true.
And And so if I am making decisions based upon I'm going to upset someone, then I may not be making the right decisions. And so in the end, that's one reason why I'm so transparent, because my view is if you're sincere, honest, and transparent, then when I make a decision that you may not like the decision because it is not in your interest, you at least appreciate that what we're trying to do and the fact that it's not necessarily an easy decision, and that we have a job, which is to make sure Twitch thrives. So that's why I think it's important to come on streams like that. So then, if there'll be certain decisions that might make, but as I think it's important for people to realize that Twitch does care about all of these decisions and kind of struggle with them.
Yeah, that's good to have a more, let's say, human feedback, humane feedback, compared to maybe just plopping the decision and then whatever. But some of the decisions that were made and will be made are part of my questions. So I'll go to the second one. I have a little intro that I've prepared. So the emergence of new platforms such as TikTok has greatly impacted the type of media that is produced by content creators on the web, which has in turn shaped the expectations of users. The tendency has become to make short, fast, and attention-capturing videos, which are inevitably often shallow. Live streaming is definitely on the other side of the spectrum, since it is difficult to be high-energy attention-capturing for several hours. Moreover, I feel like Twitch can be a platform where topics can be discussed in depth and in their full complexity, which is, by the way, why I'm on Twitch and not on TikTok or other platforms. However, this trend of short content is surely profitable for platforms, and for instance, we have seen the YouTube's that has introduced shorts and all of that. Is Twitch worried about this phenomenon? It is thinking of extending its ecosystem to engage younger users. Or maybe it's thinking to focus on older audiences, promoting itself as a platform where maybe you can also find entertainment or professor talking or stuff like that.
Yeah. So, so first of all, great question. And I agree with many of the tenets that you said, but I want to make a distinction on one aspect. Human needs don't change. Young people have the same needs. A 14-year-old today has the same fundamental needs as a human as 14-year-olds 10 years ago. It is absolutely the fact that their time is spent in different ways, and short form is a very intoxicating way to spend that time. However, their desire for community, their desire for more in-depth discussion, their in desire for what I'll call authentic human connection is the same, because we biologically evolved to yearn for authentic human connection, community, and many other things. So just recently I've started to start calling, we have all these social networks, and actually they're anti-social networks. It's not particularly social to sit on your phone and swipe endlessly.
Sure.
Okay. And arguably Twitch is the primary social network out there, in that we are inherently a community-based platform. And that is because we have synchronous engagement with the creator and the community. And that both occurs in terms of the creator's engagement with the community, but the horizontal interaction in chat. Because in fact, this sense of community, it's not just about the creator. It's the fact that people in chat start recognizing other people in chat. And then they haven't seen someone in a while, and they go, Vixen Venno, where have you been? Right? Haven't seen you in a while. How are you doing? And they start chatting, and they start. And so I think Twitch meets a very human need. And interestingly, I think over time you could almost see, and I think you said it well, we're on the other end of the spectrum, which sometimes can be a good thing, right?
I think it is a good thing.
Yes. And so I don't think it's this idea that, we'll just meet the needs of older people, because younger people need community as well. Okay. They need a place where they belong. They need a place where they can be themselves. They want to be able to speak, because that's one thing that everyone does in chat is they're speaking. When I'm sitting there swiping on TikTok, I'm not speaking. I'm watching. I'm passive.
You're not even choosing what you're watching. The platform gives
not
it to
even
you.
choosing. Yes. Okay. And this is, by the way, one reason I think this fear, people mistakenly think live streaming is live streaming is live streaming. And live streaming is a medium of engagement, just like text is a medium of communication. Okay. People don't confuse a blog post with a novel, but they're both text.
Sure.
Aren't they the same thing? No, they're not the same thing. A blog post and a novel are different things. Live streaming on TikTok is not the same as live streaming on Twitch. Okay? You just swipe, you just swipe, you just swipe. I use the phrase community-centric live streaming sometimes to highlight how Twitch is different than TikTok, Instagram, and even YouTube. Okay?
So we were saying, yeah, okay. So you say, your take is interesting. I'm not completely sold on it. Like, I think that young people are still in need of community. Of course, that's part of our brain. But I think it's stronger is the simpler approach that TikTok has. I like to call it's like entertainment gambling. So that's so strong. You just go there, and so you don't search for community. You may need it, but you are not actively searching for it. And it's just so much simpler to just take your phone and go with the gambling, no? Because on TikTok, it's actually, you get one good TikTok every 10, and you like to swipe. You want to feel the neurological pleasure of finding the good content. And that's so strong. So I'm afraid of that, you know?
So the interesting thing, are you familiar, and this will be a great thing if you're not familiar, to read up and to, you can talk about it on your stream with your community. Are you familiar with the System 1 and System 2 brains, that terminology?
Sure. I mean, okay. I think so. I should have studied it, so maybe it's the same thing, but go on.
Well, I mean, there's this book, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, which has gotten popular, that talks a lot about it. And the System 1 brain is the things that we just do naturally without like intentionally thinking about it. Now, people often think about that like moving your arm and doing all that, but it's even a lot more than that. The System 2 brain is our reasoning and our, when we think through something. We mistakenly think that we make decisions based upon our reasoning brain, and in fact, we don't.
No. Yeah.
Most of the decisions we make are based upon our System 1 brain. And most of it, for any question that someone will ask you, an answer will pop into your head as soon as they ask the question. Okay, that is how we are wired to do. What is your opinion on fill in the blank politician, fill in the blank issue, fill in the blank thing? An answer pops in your head.
Often it's horrible, but it pops in the...
Yes. And also about, do you like this school? Do you like this food? Do you like this? An answer pops in your head. And interesting, all the experiments show that we actually then try to find justifications for the answer that popped into our head.
With the System 2, you put in place the reasoning system, and you say, oh, maybe it's because, and you try to figure it out. Yeah.
Yes, and the reality is that it's not why you believe it. You came up with a bullshit explanation, and so much of what we believe because other people we know believe it. And that's one of the problems in politics today. Why do you believe so-and-so is a good president, a bad president? It's like, well, because I've heard other people say it. And humans evolved to do this, and it makes a ton of sense. Why do you believe that you should stay away from a tiger? Have you ever been eaten by a tiger? No.
Just feels like the right thing to do. Run. Well, maybe run is not the best.
When I was a kid, all these people said, stay away from that tiger, okay? And so you believed it because other people believed it, or this berry is poisonous. You didn't do a scientific experiment to understand why that berry was poisonous. Somebody said, don't eat that berry, and so you didn't eat that berry. But in today's world, it leads, and so I'm going through this because, in fact, TikTok is built for the System 1 brain.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
A swipe is, you don't think, do I like this or not? You just swipe and swipe and swipe. And people like that, okay? All you have to do is open the app. Interestingly, let's take Instagram.
Oh, but the swipe is in the other direction. It's not so...
Well, no. Instagram has, actually, you open Instagram and you actually have a choice. Do I look at my stories?
No,
or do I
true.
look at my feed? Right? And we don't like choices, right? And then they try to move you into reels. Now you actually have three choices. Do I look at my stories? Do I look at my feed? Or do I click the tab at the bottom, which is reels? And of course, they're trying to get you over to reels. Okay, but you have to make a choice to go over there. And TikTok's and even YouTube has this too. They say, do you want to watch a VOD or do you want to watch a reel? And TikTok is, nope, there's one
Just
thing you want to
go.
watch. Just go. So I do agree that that is how we work. Interestingly, we're playing around with an immersive feed in our app to try and help that, because you open the app, you should see live content right away, right? Show you
Yeah.
live content as opposed to, what do I want to watch? Nope, I'm going to show you live content right away, right? But I agree. It is certainly a really good business. YouTube has a really good business. TikTok has a really good business. Okay. Obviously, YouTube's business is bigger than Twitch's. TikTok's
Sure.
business is bigger than Twitch's. Okay. But I'm not going to be TikTok and I'm not going to be YouTube. Okay. I'm Twitch. And that's one of the problems that so many companies have. They don't realize who they are. Perfect example. Elon often talks about wanting to build an everything app for Twitter. People don't want an everything app. I like Twitter. I like Twitter for what it does. I don't want Twitter to be my one app for everything I need. Users don't want everything apps. Users want apps that they use for specific purposes and specific needs. So sometimes you want to pull up a chair and hang for a little while. And TikTok isn't the app you're going to open when you want to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I really like, our policy around simulcasting. Like when people ask me, what should I do? I'm like, look, when I'm streaming, I would probably simulcast in TikTok. What it basically is a free advertisement in the TikTok feed that says, hey, I'm live.
Yeah. That's how I used it anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
and I'm like, sure, I'll take a free ad.
the interaction is so different because people on TikTok are not searching for the same thing that people are searching on Twitch, simply because they chose to open TikTok and not Twitch, right? So it makes sense. My concern is, but maybe I'm too catastrophic, is just that if new generations never train their I don't know, their pleasure on having something that is slower, that takes time, that has no immediate feedback. Like for instance, I've started to play the guitar just because I was bored, right? I didn't have anything else to do, so I took the guitar, and 10 years later, I'm still shit, but at least I know some chords, right? And if as a very young person you never do that, I'm just afraid that you're never going to be able to learn the pleasure of doing
I don't
that.
think this is what I'll say. I mean, it's not that you never do it. You do it. I will use this one data point because, in fact, this is one thing that I always worry about. I'm like, maybe this is happening. When I hang out with my friends, or I get friends that were my age, like I have friends that are a bunch of different age, but like I'll tell a quick story. I was in New York with a friend that I went to college with, his 60th birthday party. His brother was there, who I was also friends with, and his brother brought his 14-year-old son. His brother recently had sold a pharmaceutical company for like $1 billion or something like that. His brother was doing really well. Okay. But his son found out that I was the CEO of Twitch, right? And I was like, oh, Dad, that's a lot cooler than your job. Okay. And he wanted to hang out and talk to me, right? And I'd say this is universal, that in fact, I'll have friends that are like, Twitch, explain to me Twitch. And then one of their kids will come along and they're like, Dad, that's a cool job. What do you mean? He's CEO of Twitch, right? Oh, that's great. So I get that with 14, 15, and 16-year-olds. So I think while certainly I don't think we're getting less 14, 15, and 16-year-olds than we did before. I actually think we're getting the same number, okay, or more, okay? And that I think over time, this will, because we balance them out, right? This will be beneficial for Twitch, because the thing is, we are more comparable to watching a TV show on Netflix for long form entertainment, but you're sitting by yourself, right? And so we're this interesting, intersection, between a long form TV show on Netflix or Prime Video or whatever, okay, with user generated content and social interaction. So I feel pretty good that over time we're continuing to meet a need, and that this idea, it's natural for us to always think that we're doomed in the future because this horrible thing is happening.
Sure.
Right.
That's
And
again system one speaking, I think.
yes, that's since the dawn of man, it was always better in the past, and the
Yeah.
future is dark and scary. Yet since the dawn of man, the future has always been better than the past. So my belief is we're pretty damn resilient. Now I'll say global warming is the one thing that scares me because that's a whole nother dimension. But on all these other things, even when we have conflicts, there has been this long march towards increased civility, increased prosperity, increased happiness, increased and there are problems with the modern world. But I'm pretty confident that we'll work through this and that the kids actually are going to do just fine.
Okay. That was uplifting. So, okay, so the next one is gonna be two-folded. And so let's talk about money and audience. Two nice topics. Twitch is not profitable. You have been clear about that in other interviews. And the platform has been acquired by Amazon, but cannot sustain itself just yet. And my personal feeling, that's my personal feeling, and also the feeling of some of my colleagues that I've talked to, it feels like Mama Amazon is slowly reducing the support by making Prime subscriptions less and less valuable to creators. I know that the path to sustainability is indubitably very complex, but I think it boils down to one simple fact. Mid and big creators must be able to generate money either via advertisement or via paid subscriptions so that they can sustain the costs for their stream and also cover for all of the many little streamers that do not generate enough revenue. If my analysis is solid, the solutions seem to be either you reduce the costs, and maybe the collaboration with NVIDIA and all of that and the encoding is part of that strategy, or you bring in more audience, more creators, and more monetization strategies. Basically, you need more viewers and more money from them. Which brings me to the questions. Do you think Twitch will ever be sustainable? How far are we from that goal? And what are your strategies in order to increase Twitch's audience? More creators, different creators, better discoverability, better incentives for creators. I know it's a lot, so you can.
Yeah.
This is just the topic.
Start. No, and in fact, the way you framed it, you already framed a lot of the issues. But I'm going to go ahead and make something simple that for some of your audience is like, okay, Dan, yeah, I know this, but I'll make it really simple so that everyone, gets it. In the end, when you think of a business, you can break it down into what I'll call your variable cost or your fixed cost. Mm-hmm. And your variable cost is that as your business grows, your variable cost grows. Okay, sure. So if you're running a restaurant, your cost of supplies is a variable cost. If you sell twice as much food, then you have twice the expenses. Okay. Mm-hmm. However, the rent you pay for your building in general is a fixed cost because it doesn't matter if nobody's there or if it's packed, you're paying the same rent for the building. And what you need to make sure is that you're making more than your variable cost for a service.
Of course.
So that eventually you get big enough to cover your fixed costs. And then you turn a profit once your variable costs. So a big part of sustainability is understanding actually what are our variable costs and managing those variable costs well. Because to the extent you don't control a variable cost, then even as you grow, you just have more expenses.
Of course.
Okay. And then make sure our fixed costs are not too big because ultimately you need to reach a certain scale so that the profits you make from your variable costs cover your fixed costs. Okay. Now, this idea for many people, they're like, oh, it's not profitable. What does that mean? Look, there are gobs of very successful internet companies that are not or have not been profitable for a long time. I just searched on the web. It looks like Uber first became profitable in the second quarter of this past year.
Oh, wow.
Okay, Uber. I mean, Uber's big. They make tons of money. Well, they haven't been profitable in the second quarter of this year. I know I was at YouTube, and in 2012, YouTube wasn't profitable. And in fact, they were deciding to continue to invest in the platform. So I'm sure they weren't in 2013, 2014, and probably 2015. Okay. So the reality is there's a lot of potential in Twitch. And so in fact, Amazon is still comfortable investing in Twitch. Mm-hmm. So it's not this when I talk about sustainable, I talk about understanding what our variable costs are, making sure I manage them so that they are not too large, so that as we grow, we have margin from there. And then make sure that the growth that I need is not unrealistic, meaning it's something that is modest, okay? In the past, I think sometimes we were overly optimistic and we really sized the organization for where we were going to be in 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, right? And I don't think that's the right, and a lot of tech companies do this. I don't think that's the right way to run a company. It's definitely not the right way to run Twitch. So I feel very good. And when I say we're sustainable, I mean, when I look at the fundamentals of our business, our cost to deliver the service, our variable costs, our fixed costs, I know this is a business that works. I know that. Okay. It's, you talked about enhanced broadcasting. Is that a big part of it? As I look in the future, the biggest challenge is we could not increase our variable costs for streaming because it is a really big part of what we do. Yeah. So, for example, there are tons of small streamers that don't get transcodes. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, for those who don't understand, if you don't get a transcode and somebody's watching you on a mobile device, the experience kind of sucks. You know, if you have 5G, maybe it's okay. I know back before 5G, when it was, my daughter would stream and she did not get transcodes, and I couldn't watch it on the mobile phone because I hit refresh. So that limits the small streamer. And also there are new technologies such as AV1 that we couldn't, if we adopted it and we had to transcode everything to both the current thing and AV1, we're going to double our expenses. So we're like, well, we can't do that. Yeah. Just like that. It's like, no, we can't double those expenses. But if we do a client side, now people can, while I do think it saves us some money in the long run, it doesn't like radically save us money. It saves us, it's a nice thing. But the biggest thing, it allows us to increase quality without increasing our variable costs. And the reality is, to make this a sustainable business, I can't have large increases in the variable cost.
It has to be like it is. So this also means that it's going to be hard to have huge new features in the future, right? Because
huge what? Say that again. Huge what?
Huge new features. Depending if they cost money, but I would say some of them inevitably will.
They cost some, but most of the features, like transcoding costs a fair amount. Let's take, for example, the feature we're using right now, Stream Together, right? There's some additional costs there. It's not that big compared to our normal costs with streaming. So, the fact that you and I have a connection and then we're also streaming it, it's a tiny bit more, but it kind of doesn't matter. So most of the features that people care about, some features, like let's take squad streams, okay? Squad streams, because of the way it was developed, actually was fairly expensive because of the transcoding that we had to do to create the composite stream. Mm-hmm. Okay, because we basically took all the pieces and then we put them all together into one composite stream. This is a good example where we aren't doing that. So this is in some ways a cheaper, more effective, more general version of squad streams.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. I mean, but still meeting the needs. So some of it, I think most features that our viewers care about, I think going to 4K, okay, there's a good question because, the number of people who really need 4K are tiny, and 4K can add lots of expenses, and it may not be worth it. But but you can still get improved quality without that.
Maybe you can get it. One thing that comes to mind, but that's not very nice to implement, is to tie some of the features like 4K to the amount that you bring back to the platform, right?
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah,
are a
that's-
big enough streamer, sure, we can give you 4K. But otherwise, which is the same thing you're saying about the whole transcoding thing,
Yes.
right?
Yes, you absolutely can do that. But the key thing is you want to make sure that it's actually going to make a difference to the viewers. The whole reason to do it is because viewers will enjoy more and will watch more, right? And
Which, I don't know. I
well,
don't
no,
know
that's
if
the
it's
question.
the case with 4K. I mean, who cares about 4K? Maybe
Well, that's
somebody
the
on the
point.
TV, I guess, but from your mobile, are you gonna watch 4K on your iPhone? I don't think so, right?
And when we're sitting here chatting right now, it's almost certainly the case that 4K doesn't matter. Okay, you know, maybe in the future, certain games it makes a difference. Okay, but you have to look at the adoption of the people that are really going to take advantage of it, and is the money worth it?
Yeah, that's the
Sometimes
question.
people just want to do it. We get caught up in these numbers. And I say, why do you want 4K? Well, because I want 4K, because it's the new thing. But why do you want 4K? Well, because it's 4K, right? And they don't even know the details. So I think there are those things that it's our job to figure out, is this going to make a difference for the viewer commensurate with the cost?
And okay, so but what about bringing? Of course, if the variable cost stays the same, your fixed costs have been lately reduced, I guess, because some people have been laid off. I don't really understand if that was a decision of Twitch per se, or it was more imposed by Amazon, because they had huge layoff, and all of the tech industry had layoffs in the last few months.
Here's the way to think of it. Amazon, in general, the tech industry is evolving the way they run their businesses. And Amazon's no exception, and Twitch is no exception. They used to run their business a little bit with this idea of bigger means better and means more. It means if I have a bigger org, I'm going to grow faster, right? And that's throughout the tech industry.
Yeah.
And I think many of them are realizing, that's not always the case. Like the extra resources don't necessarily make me grow faster. Okay. And so Amazon is evolving the way it thinks about its business. Interestingly, we probably were a little bit ahead of Amazon on each of these things in terms of, because the biggest thing is Amazon's like, look, Dan, show me how this business works. Show me how it's sustainable. Show me how your variable costs and your fixed costs and all that. And it was my job is to make the business work.
Sure.
And, I realized, look, at this size, I'm needing to bet on a lot more growth, okay, than I would have had otherwise. And I felt like I don't need to bet on that growth yet, and in fact, I would rather, because part of this also goes in the mindset of how much money I take from streamers, okay? Because my two biggest expenses is the money that is shared with streamers, which is far and away the biggest expense, and then our employee cost. And I really feel like Twitch's long-term success depends upon our ability to support streamers and their ability to maintain their livelihood through their streaming. So, we've been working to help improve the revenue share there, right? With both the announcements we made on the ads program and the announcements we made with the Plus program, because we feel like long term that's where we want to be, and we need to make choices about that.
And do you think that these last changes will be somewhat interesting for maybe new creators, or because new creators have to start from scratch, right? And so we reach the infamous discoverability issue, right? Which I think it's one of the most explicit issues of Twitch right now. So do you think that these measures for revenue are gonna get the interest of new creators? And do you think that in general new creators can be seen on this platform? I just think they cannot be seen right now.
So let me say this. I do not think this affects new creators.
Okay.
I think when you're a new creator on Twitch, we often use this phrase internally called fame, money, and love.
Okay.
And when we use the word fame, I don't really mean being famous. It's a little, it works well as a tagline, but fame really means you want someone to be listening. You want an audience.
Maybe to
So
be
it might be better to
recognized
think-
also. These two
Yeah,
things together.
audience. Well, no, that's what love.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Audience is someone listening to you. Love is someone returning to show that you matter to them. Okay. And so whenever someone in chat saying, "Oh, I love that song. I appreciate you did this," they're showing you some degree of love, which is an appreciation, which we all need. We want someone to listen. We want someone to care, right? We want to affect them, and then we want to make money. People start streaming on Twitch almost invariably. If they're coming to Twitch for the money, they're coming to Twitch for the wrong reasons. They need to start coming to Twitch because they enjoy it and for the positive feedback that they get from the community and their audience, okay? Because live streaming takes a lot of effort. Showing up every day, right? And when you start out, there's no way, oh, I'm doing all this. I don't really enjoy it, but that's okay. In 2 years, I'm going to make money. Well, that's a stupid thing to do in the creative arts. In general, the creative arts, if you're an actor, you love acting and you hope to make money acting, but you started out acting for free. And if you're a singer, you almost certainly started out singing for free. And if you're a painter, you almost certainly started out painting for free.
In fact, I agree, but the difference here is that it's so easy to try to be a streamer. So many, I think, fail from the start. Because if you want to be a singer, you go, you take lessons, and then you have more time to develop the love for your art and craft and whatever. While maybe you watch somebody, you know, you say, that's a streamer. I know he's making, I do agree that the order, like money is not the first reason, but it's part of the decision. Like, oh, look, he's making money, he's having love, and he's having an audience and all of that. And so I start.
I think it's actually, I think it is part of the decision later in the journey. Nobody starts taking singing lessons to become rich. If they do, that doesn't make sense. That in fact, they start singing because they like to sing. And then once they've been singing for a while and they say, I love singing, they start saying, maybe I can make a career of this because I love singing so much.
That's reasonable.
My brother's an actor. I did acting in college. You always start to, we are a creative art, no different from acting, singing, painting, dancing. You start for free and then you start saying, I wonder if I can fund my life through this. And the revenue share is to help those people who are making some money, right? But now they start questioning, can I fund my life and can I keep doing this, right? Can I do more of this? They might be streaming 10 hours a week, right? And they're starting to make, let's say they're streaming 10 hours a week and they make $4,000 a year from streaming, right? You know, and they're like, well, this is nice. It can't fully fund my life, so I have this other job. Yeah. But if I could get to that 60-40, and right now I'm at, you know, let's say I'm at, you know, 50 ACCV, you know, on average, right? Or 50 subs, right? 50 subs. Then I can start saying, so, and if I make 4,000 from Twitch, I know if I get bigger, and let's say I double that and now I'm getting 8,000 from Twitch, and then now I get 60-40, so maybe I get 12,000 from Twitch, and then I get some sponsorships, you can start saying, yeah, so I think I can make a go of this. So I do think it matters for people that start thinking about making this the way they fund their life. And that's one thing we've been very intentional about as we adjust revenue shares, is ultimately those people that are going to keep investing in their community. Since Twitch and TikTok, if you're making TikToks and you disappear and somebody else goes in there, they kind of don't give a shit.
Yeah, because there's no community. That's true.
And they have more stuff they can just stick in the feed. So they have more than enough people dreaming of being a TikTok star. So they don't care if you decide to stop making TikTok videos because it's not sustainable. Once you start building a community on Twitch, there's value in maintaining the community. So we've been very intentional that those people that are funding a portion of their lives, we'd like to make it more sustainable by providing improved revenue share.
But when you say, you start thinking and you say, maybe I can do double my subs and all of that, I think there is the really hard part. Because how can you do that? It's so difficult. Either you have to collaborate with somebody that it's bigger.
So now let's go to the discovery problem, which I think is this related problem, but it's a distinct problem.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
Absolutely agree. Yeah.
Okay. So you highlight this, and we talked about this before with TikTok. So, as is often the case, the very thing that makes Twitch magical is the very thing that creates challenges for Twitch. Mm-hmm. So, how many creators do you think a 15-year-old is exposed to on TikTok in a week?
How many creators do you think 15 years old are exposed on Twitch?
No, on TikTok.
On TikTok.
They take a 15-year-old watching TikTok. How many creators do you think they're exposed to?
Thousands.
Thousands.
At least.
Right?
Yeah.
Thousands. Now, on YouTube, it's probably not thousands, but it's probably hundreds.
Yeah, I agree.
Hundreds. Most people that watch Twitch in a week might watch 10 creators.
Well, that's a lot more, I think. Because this is a little parenthesis. I've done a study by watching viewers list, which I cannot do anymore because the API removed that endpoint. But I've made a graph on the Italian community, and most of people watch 1 or 2 streamers.
No, I was being generous with 10.
Yeah.
I was being generous with 10. Most people don't. It's 4 to 8.
Okay.
Is really, and they watch most of their time on 1 or 2, a little less time, and then they kind of dabble.
Yeah, when the others are not live, they just search for a new source.
And we drive viewers to spend time on the channel page. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes community work on Twitch. Because we invite you to pull up a chair and to stay for a while, as opposed to constantly distracting you and getting you on to the next thing. Okay. Mm-hmm. And even on YouTube has related videos. And if you're watching someone live on YouTube, you're distracted by the related videos in the bottom right. Because if you get a little bored, well, there's some candy down to the bottom right and you click it. So everyone says, well, the community is different on Twitch. And the reason the community is different on Twitch is because we get you to stay, as opposed to trying to draw you off to the next channel, the next channel, the next channel. The reality is that makes discovery harder. Long-form content discovery is harder than short-form content.
Oh, I agree. Okay? Sure.
But the fact that we focus on the discovery page is what makes Twitch so special. Okay? Mm-hmm. So there isn't a simple magical answer to this, because the magical simple answer, okay, would be to get people to keep moving around streams all the time. But if I distracted them all the time, now you lose some of the magic of the
I would say the most important thing. I mean, I get your thing. I mean, from one side, as a streamer, I'd love to keep my community for me. But then, as another streamer that is not me, I'd like to grab the audience from somebody else, right? And at the end, everybody has just a fixed amount of time that maybe can spend on the platform. So the competition is much stronger. If I'm a TikToker and another TikToker is better than me, they can be entertained for 30 seconds, and then they can come to me and another TikToker and another. But with our type of content, of course, we can keep the people for hours. But maybe discovery is not really for. I'm just thinking. Maybe discovery is not really for actual users of Twitch, but for new users of Twitch. Why should they move to Twitch? Why should they, and what should they watch, right?
Yeah. So by the way, before we get to that, discovery does matter for current users of Twitch, because the reality is over time you might start like getting a little bored with this creator, or he's playing a different game that you didn't play, or they morph and they start cooking and I'm like, I'm not that into cooking. So I think actually to keep someone at Twitch, you need like a range of creators. So let me describe first discovery for besides to new users, existing users, and then we'll get to new users because they overlap. So I think there's 3 parts of discovery using our existing audience. One is increased collaboration.
Yeah.
Okay, because where people are spending their time is on the channel page. So we have to make it easier for people to just have impromptu collaboration where they're just hanging out more and they're shooting the shit and they're just doing stuff together. Okay, and so stream together, we still have ways to go, but it's a beginning in that. Okay, number 2, increase content on other third-party platforms. The reality is all the Twitch viewers, newsflash, they also spend time on TikTok. They also spend time on Instagram. They also spend time on YouTube. Okay. I think a lot of cool shit happens on Twitch, and only a tiny fraction of it moves out of the Twitch world into other third-party social media. I think we can increase the amount of what I'll call derivative content, stuff that derives from a Twitch stream, by a factor of 10 or 20 in terms of how much stuff is out there on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, especially with shorts, by making it much easier, maybe allowing users to help you create cool content. So increase the amount of stuff, and Twitch users will discover you there. They'll see you, they'll see a Twitch song, and go, oh, he's on Twitch, let me go follow him.
Yeah,
okay?
That's a good way.
And then,
I mean, most of the great streamers do that, right? They have their own channels with parts of entire streams reloaded.
Yes, but it's still a lot of work. And the reality is, for even the great channels, they would rather, if you're a big channel and you have 10,000 viewers, you'd rather some of those 10,000 viewers are sharing your stuff. Because in fact, those social media platforms do best when it's not just one channel doing it. You leverage your existing audience. And now the third part is, I do think there is a role for increased finding new stuff on Twitch. We're focusing on the mobile phone because in general, the sessions are shorter on the mobile phone. And I think there is a role we can play where, look, I just want to hang out and see what's cool is happening on Twitch right now, if something's really cool. So we're going to an immersive live feed, and I think we'll do other things because I think mobile is a better platform. And so I think we can do more without, disrupting the magic that we have now. So those are the 3 parts of us doing. It's not all on Twitch, right?
Okay.
Two of the 3 things are on Twitch. Now let's get to new users. New users come to Twitch because they're exposed to a Twitch creator. It is not that they come to Twitch and say, oh, I like Twitch, the platform. It's the fact that they find a creator, they've seen that creator, they like that creator, so they come and want to watch them on Twitch. Ultimately, our ticket to growth is our creators, and it's by getting their content on third-party social media platforms. Because the reason someone's going to come is because someone they know says, oh, have you checked out Enkk on Twitch? Or they keep seeing your stuff in their feed and they follow. Because the key thing that YouTube did many years ago that made YouTube win in for uploaded video was they let the content find the viewer, and that's because they allowed embedded players on websites.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And many of the other video uploading platforms did not have the same strategy with embedded players. Okay. And at that point in time, everyone was spending their time on all these websites, right? That's where they were spending their time then. And so you want content to find its audience. And then over time, that audience will come to the platform where the content lives. And so the reality is, if someone's on TikTok now, let's have our content find the audience where they are.
And bring them here.
And then bring them here. And that's exactly what YouTube did. And it shifted. People used to never start their day on YouTube. back in 2010.
While now you
Right?
open YouTube, yeah, that's because I feel like Twitch has still some road to go in this direction. It's not something many people still don't know about Twitch. Maybe they see some clips, but they don't know what they are from Twitch. So I like a lot the idea of being embedded, exist on the platforms that are already opened in the morning. And then after a while you say, oh, but what is this thing? And you go and discover the platform. And there, I still think that some work can maybe be done in order to suggest, to show that many niches are present on Twitch. And many, and like right now YouTube, you can say you can find anything on anything on YouTube, right? Do you think that people say that about Twitch?
Yeah. So this is what I'd say. I think it will be that you'll find all sorts of stuff. But it won't be everything, because not everything is well suited for Twitch. I'll take, for example, I do a lot of whitewater kayaking. Whitewater kayaking is great on YouTube.
Yeah.
I've tried to do it. It kind of doesn't really work on Twitch. So it won't be everything, because everything fits for VOD, right? You can't think of it. But will I find cooking? Yes. Will I find talking? Yes. Will I find, will I find people playing football? I don't know. There's certain things that will fit, and certain things won't to the live thing.
But when a new user opens the homepage of Twitch, do you feel like they get this impression that all of that stuff is there? I think it's not very clear.
Yeah, one of the challenges, is that we need to make sure we provide a great experience for the people that are coming for Twitch. Hold on. I'm texting my daughter.
It's okay. It's okay.
And
Are you on TikTok? My chat is asking.
no, what's that? All right.
Don't worry, take your time. It's okay.
No, I know. It's good. We need to make sure that, like, for people that are showing up at Twitch today, that, they find the stuff they want. Let me go back to the point I made that's important, though, that's tricky. If you go back with YouTube in 2010, people were coming for so many different things. I remember I was there when we started talking about the homepage, and the reality was we couldn't figure out what to show this person who hadn't been to YouTube a bunch, what to show them, because there were so many things to show somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. And the way we eventually figured that out is people would come to YouTube through other videos, right? Because they would see videos,
Sure.
and then eventually they would subscribe, and then would figure out what they want. And then eventually they could just show up at YouTube to be entertained. But my general feeling is it doesn't happen. Someone's just going to show up at Twitch to be entertained. They're going to see Enkk on another platform and say, I really like Enkk. I'm going to watch him on Twitch. And then they may see another streamer come on your platform and they'll follow that streamer. And then they see another streamer, and eventually they get to where we now know enough about what they like that we can start showing stuff that they're like. But this idea that someone comes to Twitch and says, oh, I haven't really watched it, show me something. It takes time to understand live streaming. It takes time, and it always starts with a creator. If you're going to be exposed to live streaming and the magic of live streaming, it starts with creating an affinity with an individual that you find interesting, entertaining, and you do that, and you get in the community, and then you find your second, third, fourth, fifth.
It takes time. I like that. I like that approach. It takes time. because maybe when I was thinking about these things and preparing the questions, I was like, yeah, but why Twitch is taking that time, so much time to get a big audience? But maybe it's probably like you're saying. So it takes time. People need to.
It takes time. Here's the difference. TikTok, okay, and YouTube, videos spread virally. That is the nature of short form content. There's a virality there. The challenge with virality is if things grow virally, they can also shrink virally because someone else will grow virally. So there are all these TikTok stars that'll become a star. And if they don't keep running the rat race, they'll no longer be a star because the algorithm will stop liking them and they'll just go by the wayside. That also happens in platforms. We all remember Vine, which grew like the next big thing, and then it disappeared, right? There was Yik Yak. There was, of course, there was MySpace, okay? A lot of people worry that Facebook will become that because TikTok and Instagram. Those things that grow slow tend to stay because if it takes time, it takes your time to build your audience is incredibly resilient once you build it because you build strong affinity. And the truth is TikTok is not a viral platform, okay? Things take time. If you're going to grow on Twitch, it takes time. Sometimes you might explode on TikTok. And then because you exploded on TikTok, that immediately transitions to your Twitch audience. Okay. But once you get them over to Twitch, they stay.
That's definitely, like, I'm sure that many creators that have bigger numbers, much bigger numbers compared to me, maybe on other platforms. But I know that if I come here, I have my some hundred of people that are still here every time, and I know them by nickname, and we discuss the same things, and that's something so powerful that you cannot really find on any other platform. So that's okay. That was profound. I do have another couple of things. I don't know how we are on time.
I think that works. My daughter's on her way home, and I told her I was free to hang out when she gets here, which is probably
Perfect.
15 to 20
I'll speed
minutes.
run those.
Yeah.
So this is the spiciest one. You already know the topic, of course. It's the hot topic, quite literally. I like to call that this type of content almost explicit. And Twitch terms of service concerning sexual content have been lately changed and then partially reverted. Now, this is just, again, my personal read on the facts. I feel like Twitch is dancing on the perimeter of what's permitted on the sexually alluding content, trying to keep as many creators on the platform as possible, but also avoiding to be seen as a soft porn promoting platform. And I mean, the only reason I can think that the reason for this is it's money. We know that this type of content can bring user whales that spend a lot of money on platforms, and so they could potentially prove to be an important source of income for the platform. Can you guide us to the reasons that made you decide to change the terms of service and then change them again? And what's your take on this type of content?
Yeah. So, first of all, the reason for this content isn't because, oh gosh, we make so much money from it. That's not the case, actually.
Okay.
In fact, when the hot tub thing first started happening, we had a lot of discussions internally about it. Interesting, it was a lot of the senior women leaders at Twitch that were arguing that these women were not hurting anybody. This wasn't a safety issue. Okay, and then if people wanted to watch it, they were not naked. Okay, there were certain guidelines. Our guidelines actually are, on Twitter, you do have nudity. Okay. Oh, yeah. And in fact, there are lots of people on Instagram and YouTube that are very scantily, clothed as well.
Threads. Okay. I don't know if you checked it out, but it's.
Yes, it's quite prominent. And in fact, people often talk about some of the women that, they're just driving it to their OnlyFans account. Instagram is a far bigger platform for driving viewers to OnlyFans, far bigger. I mean, we're dwarfed compared to it. We're irrelevant compared to Instagram. And everyone else uses Instagram, and they're not caught up in the Instagram. So the general motivation was about, look, if they're not hurting somebody, we need to find the right way to handle this content. Okay. But, and we still have policies of saying, no, we don't want that. Like, we do not want overt sexual activity. You know, we do not want nudity. We are very clear about that. We're not planning on changing those aspects of the policy. Okay. It is the fact that as you allow some of this content, or any line that you draw, people are going to push the limits of the line. That happens on all these other platforms. Sometimes what happens is they push the limit in a way that we hadn't anticipated. Recently, they did that with implied nudity, okay, with censor bars. And then we changed the policy to say, no, I think this is a bridge too far. The thing that we recently changed and then changed back, which is a good example where us not anticipating the response, the thing we changed was there were many people that streamed in the art category that, you know, wanted the freedom to use the human body as part of their artistic expression. Of course, we are very familiar with lots of artists that use the human body as part of their artistic expression, with, of course, the most notable one being in Italy. So that is obviously something that is part of artistic expression. We made the change, and then the problem was the art category got overrun, where it was dominated by nude anime and, you know, other nude that was not really the original purpose of the change. Okay. And so we changed it back because we realized, look, there isn't a way that we can allow the artists that want to use the human body as part of their...
Moderate in using nudity.
Right,
Either you allow it or not. That's the issue of...
you allow it or not, and then when you allow it, you have people that will go to an extreme. So we changed that. Okay. Let me get to two things that we're working on, which is important. One thing we're working on is the ability to blur thumbnails for sexually themed content. Okay. Another thing we're working on is we've created these content classification labels.
That's great.
And which is good, but we need a user to be able to say, don't show me any stuff that is sexually themed or that is gambling or that is whatever it is. And we're working on that now so that users can set their own preferences and then they won't see it.
I feel like, okay, I mean, the direction is interesting, but when you say every time we draw a line, people are gonna push it, my simple answer is just draw it a little bit backward and backward and backward. I mean, I understand that people are gonna push the line, but for me, the issue is that it's really difficult. You say it on Twitter and whatever, there is nudity, but it's like creators are, maybe even on YouTube, I don't know, but creators seem to be more separated. So that type of content get only pushed when you start watching that. But here on Twitch, I feel like it's so mixed. Now, the good thing about the categories is that the homepage doesn't provide you with certain... So that I enjoyed very much, and it's just partial. But you said people can change their own settings. But it was partial because then when I go on just chatting, even if they are tagged with sexually explicit, it's still just chatting, and so I will still find half-naked creators. No?
Yeah.
That's weird. It feels weird. I don't know.
Yeah. So by the way, you know, for those who don't, you know, by the way, we have a given attire policy. Okay. And then we have an exception with the hot tub or pools or something like that. Okay. But in fact, there is a policy that in terms of your attire. Now, the interesting thing is that if they want to be in just chatting, they actually cannot be wearing the same clothes that they can wear in pools or hot tub. They, by definition, need to cover up more. Okay? Yeah. Because, in fact, we do have a much stricter line for attire outside of the hot tubs category. Okay? A much stricter, we're much stricter than YouTube, Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of what you can be wearing. Okay? But they still, the interesting thing is, you said just draw it,
Be more strict.
Be more strict. Okay.
Yeah.
The reality is we are more strict for being in just chatting. Okay. And in fact, often they are not scantily clad when they're doing this. I mean, I'm going there right now. And the reality is sometimes it is, to be frank, it's an attractive woman that's fully clothed.
Yeah, but
right.
I know that it's difficult to put as a written law, but sometimes it just feels like they are, I don't know, joking. They are on the perimeter. They are speculating on the perimeter. They are explicit. The positions. Why should you put your camera up your ass? That's not okay. Yes, you are chatting, but why are you doing that? That's solely for sexual reasons. That's so clear. But yet, so difficult maybe to put in words, right?
Yeah. So, by the way, one thing that you're saying here, which I think is something that I know I'm thinking about the pros and the cons of, which is I do agree this issue about it appearing in just chatting, even as we have the labels where you can say don't show me any of this stuff. There is an alternative model. In fact, for a little while, hot tubs kind of worked this way. This content all went into the hot tub category. Okay, because in that they had less restrictions in terms of their attire. So since they had less restrictions in terms of their attire, the content went over into hot tubs. Okay, what has happened is they have like said, oh, I don't need the attire. I'm fine with having more attire restrictions. And now it's in just chatting. And so there's one thought, which is, should we have a category just for this stuff? Right. So that way.
It feels like a ghetto then.
Huh?
It feels like a ghetto then. I mean, separating it feels so weird, right?
No, that's the challenge, right? And by the way, in all of this, you say, oh, it's easy to draw this line where you can't do it. Trust me, we've been drawing various lines. And the challenge is there are all sorts of folks that get caught up in so many different lines, right? Especially because our ones used to be, oh, it can't be more than 5 seconds. And then you'd have streamers that were not doing this, where the camera would actually be lowered for 5 seconds, right? Their camera got right now, if my camera went like this, I'm not going to get in trouble, right? But you have streamers whose camera went like that, or they were IRL streaming and they were juggling a camera and it was looking like this, and then they get suspended, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, well, you should know that. Writing objective criteria that then you can enforce at scale, it's just hard.
It's not easy. I do agree. But I like very much, I've been a bit harsh. So I want to say, I like very much the thing of being able to put categories. And I feel like the default for non-logged in streamer users should be to have all of that disabled, of course.
I think that's a reasonable position.
And then one last thing to make, I feel, the system complete, and then we will re-adjourn, I don't know, is to have maybe some artificial intelligence or something that can try to intercept content that is not tagged. Because, I mean, sometimes you can even forget about it. It's not, maybe you don't do it on purpose, right?
Well, getting people to tag it appropriately is important. Yeah. Our current policy, and I think this has worked pretty well, we need to refine it, is if you aren't tagging your content, people can report it, we tag it, and if you do that repeatedly, then we'll just lock you into the sexual theme category. That in fact, you won't be able to take it off. And so that's the way we do it right now. We still have to figure out the number of times if you fail to tag it. For sexual content, the reality is many of the creators that create sexual content do it on most of their streams, right? Yeah. So I think in general it has worked. There's certainly exceptions. But I think we can get people to tag it because we can always just lock it if they refuse to tag it appropriately.
Okay, so it's you are working on this. It's good to know. It's good to know. Last question, and then I have the.
Hold on. Hold the last question. My wife is returning a car that's rented in my name. Hold on. Yeah.
Yeah, so chats. Have I don't know if he's I'm disturbing the call, but I will try to entertain both chats. I've been a bit harsh on the last questions, but it's I feel like it's something that everybody's thinking. So dite che maybe he's using the classic technique of having somebody call. No, so you have an excuse to leave. Maybe it's that. Could be that. I don't know. It seems like a good conversation to me. But it's the last question. I have just one little question about bands, and then I have a little surprise chat I've made. I don't think he's listening, so I can tell you. I don't think he's listening. I can tell you. I've made an AI song for him. I made it on stream, so it's like a good style. It's groovy. I like it. So let's see. After this question, I will send it to him. I don't think he's listening. I don't know. Oh yeah, let me prepare that anyway. So I have it in one click. It's an uplifting disco song. I put it here. There we go.
All right.
Okay.
Hopefully that's it. She's returning around a car and getting on a flight, and
it's okay. It's nice to have.
For the last question. Here we go.
Last question, and then I have the little surprise, but it's gonna be fast. Don't worry. What is the approach of Twitch towards permanent bans, repetitive bans, and ban duration? For instance, I'll give you some examples. Amurant has been banned 2 days ago for a total of 8 times in 4 years. Seemingly for similar reasons every time, with an average time of 1.5 days per ban. Indie Fox, another creator, has been permanently banned after 5 violations, more or less the same thing as topics of the violation. Other creators have been permanently banned after 1 or a few violations related to violence, hate speech, fraud, gambling. It seems like, and I think it's reasonable, that certain terms of service violations are worse than others. Is however the ban duration completely discretional? Can you be banned too many times? And is there any rule of thumb that you're using, not use personally, but as a platform to decide when it's enough?
Yeah. So I'm gonna talk abstractly here, because this is actually one of the things we're working on this over the next year to evolve, because I don't think we're at the right place right now. You highlighted appropriately that some offenses are worse than others. So therefore, based upon the offense, the ban will be longer. And there's certain offenses that the offense in and of themselves can lead to an indefinite ban. And of course, we can think of certain offenses that you're like, yes, they should be indefinitely banned. They should not be allowed on Twitch if they did fill in the blank. Okay. So we have a fairly rigorous process that places different offenses into different categories, and then there's different lengths of time for the ban, and it can be an indefinite ban. Some things can be a 1-day ban, 7-day, 30-day ban, and so there's variability. We also have a process to appeal. Okay, so for example, when you compare Amaranth with Gen Fox with the numbers, and I don't know if those numbers are accurate, but I expect some of the ones got appealed and got reversed because upon appeal, they determined, oh, it wasn't a violation. Okay, so you can't just look. You can't just look, because if someone appeals and then someone else looks at it and they say, no, that probably, then that ban will, that strike
doesn't
will
really
be
count.
removed.
Okay.
It doesn't count. So that, for example, the difference between Amaranth and Gen Fox, I'm sure some of those were appealed and were then overturned. Now, I will tell you in general, I think a 1-day ban sort of doesn't matter, in that, in fact, in general, we need to have, because 1 day it's like, great, I'm going to take tomorrow off. So it doesn't necessarily.
It can actually be like a sponsorship of the channel, like, one day.
Yes. Oh, it's a badge of courage or whatever that you can. And so I think I don't think 1-day bans are all that effective in controlling behavior. Okay. So we need to look and see. Now, we also, that means sometimes need to give warnings, because a lot of people will get a 1-day ban and they didn't know that what they were doing wasn't like allowed, or it was incidental or accidental or whatever. So the catch-22 is, to the extent, because there are people that get banned that for every one that you can pick up an example, there are 5 that, like, look, I said this and that's not what I meant, and it was taken out of context, and there are people that receive a ban, and it's like, and part of the people think AI is doing this, but often it's humans, and humans sometimes mess up. I mean, I have countless examples where a streamer said I was banned for this, and I said that doesn't make sense, and then I dug into it. Or we have appeals, because you just have people that don't have the full context, right? And it's tough to determine a joke or all of that. Now, you raise this question of, when do you get X strikes and you're out, right? Where you get indefinite. In general, I think the punishment should fit this idea that eventually you get, indefinite, it probably happens, but it probably should happen less, because in fact, what we should be sure is that the punishment is enough to disincentivize you ever getting there. And part of the problem is a 1-day ban isn't enough to disincentivize you from getting there.
Yeah.
Right. So you go 1-day ban, 1-day ban, 1-day ban, 1-day ban, 1-day ban, you're off forever. It's like, whoa. Like,
there's no escalation. Sure.
Yes. So
you
that
don't understand
model,
that. But
slap on the wrist, slap on the wrist, slap on the wrist, you're gone forever. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't think that is perfect. Okay. The other thing is, bans strikes eventually should sunset, because the reality is, someone's sitting here, I've been, we're 15 years from now. Someone's like, well, I got one banned 1 strike 17 years ago.
Yeah.
And the length of time you stream and how much you stream affects how many strikes you might get. Okay, because someone who's been streaming for 6 years may just inadvertently get more strikes. So at some point in time, these things should roll off.
The density maybe, but even permanent bans should roll off.
So it depends upon the severity. So right now we've set up a policy. We've communicated that if you're indefinitely banned, you can apply for to be reactivated after 6 months. Okay. Now there's certain offenses where we won't grant that. Okay, because these are and in fact, there's certain offenses where it's like, no, you're gonna have to wait 2 years, because that's a pretty egregious things that harm somebody. Right? If you are actively harming somebody, let's assume you dox somebody or something like that. Well, you actively harmed somebody and you knowingly did it and you intentionally did it. And so you should stay off longer, right? But you should be able to redeem yourself, right? People can go to prison and come out and work. You should be able to redeem yourself over time. And that's why it depends upon the severity. But we now have a process where you can appeal, you can apply for reinstatement. After a certain period of time.
Because I also know, sadly, a friend of mine said a very bad joke and was permanently banned. I think with right. It was 4 years ago, And one of the things that maybe it's
Hold
worth...
on, did they apply? Did they apply for reinstatement and they got rejected?
I think they did, but I'll make sure to tell him
by the
to
way,
do it again.
If they did, go ahead and ping me on it, because one of the problems that comes in is, and this is a challenge, that you have hate speech, and of course, someone who rants with a word like the N word repeatedly, like, I don't know if that person, because they're just attacking, a given group of people with a derogatory term, then sometimes some people will make a bad joke.
Yeah, very badly shaped joke.
The same, but it was a bad joke. And so in general, it may have been they replied right away. I know this is one thing they've had to evolve with the reinstatement process, because they realized that while there were certain people that were in a category such as hate speech that maybe did some egregious things, there were a lot of people that had a bad joke. Right? So ping me on Discord, or get them to ping me on Discord, and I can follow up. If they haven't applied recently, then they should just, apply for reinstatement.
Okay. Because one last thing on this. Well, thank you very much for taking care of the issue, but it has been difficult for him since, he's a streamer and his friends are streamers. And as you know, when you're banned, you cannot, be alive around streamers, because they go IRL and he cannot go in that pub, because in that pub they do streams, and so he's afraid of moving. So after 4 years, I feel like in Italy here, if you do horrible things, after 4 years you're out of jail. So I feel like it's
I completely agree with that. I completely agree with that. And we both simultaneously have cases where this person should absolutely be back on the platform, and we have simultaneous cases where people are like, oh, why don't you get them off? Doing it consistently is hard at scale, but we're working to get it more, especially with the applying for reinstatement, because I couldn't agree more that 6 months is a long time, and there are a lot of people that's like, okay, great, but these are my friends. I want to hang out with them.
And okay, this is it. My question. I had another question on AI, but maybe we can.
We'll do that on another time.
Yeah, we can make a proper just AI talking.
Yes.
And since we enjoy both this type of this topic, I've made a little AI song for you.
Wonderful.
Just before our chat, I was on this platform that makes AI music. I hope you will enjoy it. I'll try to forward it to you. It should be working. So tell me if you hear it. Okay, this may be a little bit cringe, but it felt like something cute to do. I don't know. You tell me.
Let's see it. I'm looking forward to it.
Can you hear it?
I do not hear it. Oh, I know what you have to do. Like on guest star, you see where the mic is. Make sure that you have a source because that's what's coming through Stream Together, is whatever is the source.
It should be the right one, and I'm forwarding.
Oh, I know what you can do. I know a way that I bet you it will come through. Share your screen. Okay. Do you see where you can do screen share?
Yeah. Select window.
And you're going to then push it live once you select it, because then it will get desktop audio.
Let's see. Are you... Because in this way, it's supposed to be working.
Streamers of the world.
The audio is not forward.
I am not hearing it. I'm not hearing it.
Let me check the routing. So I'm forwarding system to here. Okay, now it should be working.
Don't you worry about Twitch.
I hear it.
Okay. So there you go. It's cringe, but whatever. I think it's a good song anyway. So
let's hear it.
Streamers of the world, don't you worry about Twitch. It may have its issues, but the platform got a glitch. Yeah. and keep on streaming, no matter the demand. Damn, you are the man, you got us with your plan. Ooh, yeah.
Oh no, it's
Keep the chat clean, keep the trolls away, make Twitch rich, and its streamers too on the way. Twitch is a gathering of talents, content creators, their dreams unraveled from gamers to artists. We stand in unity, building a world of endless possibility. Yeah. Keep the chat clean, keep the trolls away, make Twitch rich, and its streamers too on the way. Then you are the man.
That's it. That was the thing.
That's wonderful. Can you send me a copy of the song?
Of course, I can send you the link and
Send me the link and wherever you built it. I'd love to, if you just sent me like however you built it, and I'd love to see the seed, because I've done that a few times, or I've written songs based upon a seed where I put a seed into ChatGPT to write lyrics for me to becoming a partner, and then I wrote a song for the Twitch partner song. So I'd love to, if you could send me both the output, but then also tell me, you know, which sites you went to use it for and the seed you used to get it. That was great.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually super simple because I've used this Suno AI, and the text I change it myself, but it has like a sort of GPT thing that rewrites it for you, so that is as a good metric. But then then it's just generate, and then you can stitch songs. But I will tell you in another time.
Send me that. I'd love to do that,
sure.
and I'll go ahead and play it on my chat. In fact, what I'll probably do is just do sometime where I will, you know, that would be, in fact, if to the extent you've done a lot of playing around with different Gen AI tools to generate stuff, I'd love to do a stream where you know, because I have not had as much time as I'd like to play around with the generative AI tools.
Of course.
And because there's so many of them out there, you know.
I know. Yeah, we can make something up. You can book something, as they say. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So then, thank you very much for your time. You've been kind, and you answered pretty well. All of my doubts are gone now. So thank you very much.
All right, Enkk, it was really fun, and to your chat, thanks for being here. Looking forward. I'm going to be out in Europe in the end of February. I'm still haven't. I don't think I'll make it to Italy on that trip, but I'll probably make it to Italy probably before TwitchCon.
Yeah, come to Torino. So. They say it's the new Dubai. It's so good. Oh. They say it's the new Dubai. Yeah, come to Torino.
Okay, so Torino is where you live. Good to know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks all. This has been great. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye to you and your chat.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Palworld he's probably going to stream some soon, as some of the executives are already enjoy Palworld. Run con gli executives di Twitch su Palworld. Diamo dei tips.